We're going to talk about concussions within the NFL. This is a really big issue, especially considering the fact that 4,800 former NFL players have filed a lawsuit against the NFL because they believe that the NFL had withheld information about concussions and what this repetitive brain trauma can possibly do to some of the players. Now, we have a video explaining more. Let's take a quick look at that.
Every year, over 100,000 concussions occur in all levels of football. And 60% of these are from head-to-head collisions. In an impact lasting just 15 milliseconds, a player's head, on average, experiences almost 100 Gs of force. And collisions on special teams can result in forces of up to 190 Gs. In the NFL, the average speed of a head-to-head impact, the velocity of both heads combined, is 20 miles per hour, with the struck player's head decelerating 14 miles per hour. According to studies done by Sports Science's chief medical advisor, Dr. Basil Aish, this 15 millisecond impact is equivalent to getting smashed in the head with a sledgehammer.
Now, the information in that video is definitely relevant to parents these days. About 40% of parents say that they would steer their children away from football because of this new evidence about concussions. And one of the conditions that results from repeated or repetitive brain trauma is something known as CTE. CTE can lead to things such as depression, suicide, aggression, disorientation, and there have been a number of NFL players that have unexpectedly committed suicide, as many as 13 in recent years. And as a result, people are questioning whether or not something needs to be done about this, and how far does this need to go before Americans decide that they no longer want to watch this sport or support it. Now, Drew, I want to start off with you, since you were part of the NFL. First question is about concussions. Did you ever suffer any concussions?
No diagnosed concussions, I guess you can say. So,
do you think you had one?
I don't think. I mean, I think maybe in college one time. Really, I really tried to avoid getting hit in the head most of the time. Obviously, that's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
But honestly, like when they showed the video, I feel like most of the time I see guys get concussions is when they bang their head on the turf or on the grass after they get tackled, and because of the velocity of the way you get tackled and how your neck snaps back. But luckily, I don't think I don't think I had like a major concussion where I've never been knocked out where I'm just on the field. Luckily, that I was always just comatose on the field.
You know what I find interesting about that is you're obviously made the right decision and you tried not to get hit in the head.
Right.
But you know that that therefore commentators and coaches at some point, like if you went up for a ball and you think there's like a 5% chance of me catching this ball, maybe I'm not going to fully extend, and instead I'm going to protect myself against the hit I know that's coming. There are coaches and commentators and who are going to be like, be a man, right? You got to go.
We call that a business decision.
Right.
So,
no,
there's a lot of athletes that call it. They're like, it's a business decision. Am I going to go up for this ball? And obviously, the fans and coaches are going to be. But sometimes you're like, I want to have longevity in this sport. And
really?
I really have to, like, sometimes even. I mean, that's going very far. But like even to the point of like a guy catching a ball, and he knows he's not going to get a lot more yards, so he just goes down. Because instead of taking multiple hits for no reason, just step out of bounds. Because it's like, why am I going to take these
But then
hits?
we sit and watch, and we're like, come on, be a man, and which is obviously, it's an emotional response. It's the wrong response, but it's the one that so many of us have.
I think that thought process among viewers is definitely having an influence on players because, that same poll that I referred to earlier indicates that more than 80% of players said that they would continue playing the sport, they would continue playing the way that they currently do, even knowing this information about concussions. Like if they suffered a concussion during the game, they would continue playing in that exact same game.
Well, and that's what I find really interesting because I feel like this Frontline documentary, all of this started a long time ago now, I feel like, and nobody has no NFL player that I know of has taken themselves out of the game because of this information. I haven't heard one guy say, okay, I'm done playing football because of the risk of
If somebody, especially if that got back to the sideline to like say like a sideline reporter and said that Drew Carter thinks his head hurts so he's taking himself out of the game. Talk about your fans and your family. It would be like whatever they would, so you kind of get influenced. But also the thing is too, if you say you don't want to do it, somebody's willing to do it.
But I mean, so you're out of the game completely. Like stop playing in the NFL. I haven't heard of a player that is going to stop playing in the NFL because he has this
money away. I mean, when you think about
risk versus reward is kind of like.
Well, that's. I mean, the Frontline documentary was insanely scary. As far as a mother with children, I would never let my children play football after seeing that. Mike Webster, I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's scary. And to see that could possibly happen to you, the suicide rates, the drug addiction, all of the things that go along with this possible brain injury, maybe you can turn the money away. Maybe you have enough in the bank.
The psychology is changing a little bit. That I think that 5 years ago, if a player took himself out because he thought his head hurt, I think the reaction would have been what you said. It's a little different now because you got, you've the doctors, the Frontline documentary suggested that for years and years doctors were just doing what the NFL said. Now that we know the circumstances more, there seems to be more independence from the doctors. There seems to be more caution, and I think a player is more likely to be respected in that regard. But to your other point, Javid Best, who was a first-round pick of the Lions, and had a really good, is a team that has not had a good running back in years and years and years when they drafted him in 2012, and he had a nice rookie year, and then he got a bunch of concussions in his second year. He only played 6 games. He is part of the lawsuit against the NFL. And he didn't play last year. He hadn't been medically cleared to play because of his concussions. And you asked Javid Best, who's now sued the NFL, is he done playing? He's like, well, I'd still like to give it another shot. So he's not even.
He's also, sorry to cut you, he's also suing Rydell, the helmet company.
So he's suing everybody, but he'll get back out there.
Blaming Rydell for not, giving the information that they had in prior years of concussions and head trauma. So I mean, but you ask him, he'd probably want to get back into.
Did you see the 2 concussions he had in college?
Yeah.
Those are YouTubeable moments.
Oh yeah, they're like highlight reel stuff.
They are. Yeah. It's horrible. I mean, he was vomiting on the turf after one of the hits. The guy, and so I don't know that started in college for him. I don't know. He's got merit, but maybe with the helmet company.
And some of the symptoms of CTE don't even come about until as many as 20 years after the concussion took place. So a lot of the players that are playing now might have these symptoms decades down the line. But I do want to give you guys an update on the NFL lawsuit because it is relevant. So the NFL agreed to settle with the former players, as I mentioned earlier, 4,800 of them, for about $765 million. However, the judge decided to not approve that settlement because she didn't feel like it was enough money. There was also a condition in the settlement that I disagreed with. The NFL had done a study to see, what this brain trauma would do to its players. They had an independent study done, and part of the settlement was that they wouldn't have to release that information. So the NFL knows something that they refuse to release, and I think that that's obviously wrong and, in my worldview, very, very immoral, especially when you're putting these people out on the line and you're making a lot of money off of them. So what do you think this is going to do to viewership? Is this going to have any impact on viewership, Ben? Or are Americans so in love with football that they're willing to turn a blind eye to this?
I don't know. I'm very comfortable saying I don't know. Not right now. It hasn't had an impact on viewership. This is the highest rated Super Bowl ever, or the 5th highest, depending on which article you chose to read that day. But either way, a lot of people were watching. And but that said, this conversation has entered the public domain very clearly, and you have parents who either had no opinion or were willing to let their kids play football who are now not willing. We see that number, 40% of parents now, is that right, saying they wouldn't let their kids do it? That's got to be up. The question wasn't asked 15 years ago with consistency. So, the Kevin Greer and Tyler Cowan wrote a piece for Grantland a couple of years ago that is still very relevant today, and they're sports economists, and about how this notion that the NFL might go away is not unreasonable. I doubt it, but they lay out a scenario that is not totally unreasonable if eventually the payout for these lawsuits becomes so great, so extreme, that we get to the point where volunteer referees, let alone paid referees in college and high school, are just not going to show up for work because you show up, you're a volunteer referee, or you make $8 an hour, and then you get hit with a $2 million lawsuit for allowing a kid with a concussion to keep playing, let alone the coaches and assistant coaches. And there's a scenario where it goes away, and as they point out in the 1980s, 40% of the Fortune 500 companies that were just these big giants of business in 1980, they're gone. It can happen. And there are other sports that we like in America, so it's possible.
But not like this.
So viewership could decline, but that said, I think I wouldn't bet against the NFL and its ability to come up with a solution here that enables it to stick around. But will college football also be able to? Will high school football also be able to?
Goodell projected, last week he projected by 2027 growth for the NFL from $10 billion to $25 billion. That in no way suggests that he believes that viewership is going to be dropping off. And in fact, they're going to have to be doing a lot more technology, deals with cable companies, that DirecTV, the NFL Network, all that kind of stuff, to reach a $1 billion per year growth.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did hear something really fascinating, an argument about how helmets are actually a negative for football, because when you have something like rugby, people don't suffer as many concussions as a result of that game. Exactly. Yeah. So one. It's not even a proposed solution. It was more of a theory, and I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about it. If the players stop wearing helmets, it's actually safer for them. Is anyone buying that?
Imagine.
I don't think so. 'Cause I feel like there's certain guys that doesn't matter if you have a helmet on or not, because he'll still try to hit you harder than that. There's just guys that will just. Classy. I mean, keeping it classy.
What Drew said in the beginning about the contact post tackle of the head to the turf, and there's very few places that even play on grass now. They play on better artificial turf than they used to, but it's firm. We never see a game in the mud anymore.
I mean, the game was in New York. It was a mild temperature, luckily. But usually that time of year is like 20 degrees. So you bang your head on a hard piece of cold turf.
Jeez.
Without a helmet.
Yeah,
that's where a helmet unquestionably helps, is when you're hitting your head on the ground post tackle. But there would be fewer guys launching themselves with their heads, I suspect. But I wanted to point out, because I just read this story a couple days ago. In California here, the NFL helped lobby and successfully get through a bill that severely restricted the ability of football players to file workers' comp claims in California. You can still do it if you played the primary portion of your career with a California team. But the California law used to allow people, if Drew came in and played one game against the 49ers, then you could sue in California.
I just finished all that, my workers' compensation, all this stuff.
You did?
Yeah, but I have friends that you would come in, and like you said, if you play like any team out in the country, but you play one game against the Raiders or one game against the Chargers, you can file workers' comp in that state, because California is the best, I guess.
The best workers' comp.
But now, obviously, with the NFL rules and stuff, but I actually just finished all my litigation through all that.
The deadline was like the end of January, so a bunch of players like Drew got in under the deadline, but now going forward, unless you played, you're shut out. And I'm not even saying that that's right or wrong. Maybe you should be shut out and you got to file in your state. I don't know.
They kind of felt like they were taking advantage of, because you play one game out of your. Because if you come to California, unless you're in like a certain division, you're probably going to play a California team once every 4 years, 5 years. So all of a sudden, this guy played one time. He played maybe say 3 years in his career. He played one time in Oakland, and then so he's going to file. So it's kind of like
a little loophole. But what's interesting about it to me isn't so much whether that's right or wrong. I mean, I like that California has good laws. I'm glad you were able to take advantage of it. But the issue is, look what the NFL did. They closed it. Like here was this gap, and the NFL argued for it, and a state with a Democratic legislature, which is a workers' comp, which is the party that's more likely to be in favor of workers' comp, a Democratic governor in Jerry Brown, but the NFL comes and they got it done. So as we talk about the future of the NFL and viewership and whether they can sustain this, don't put it past the ability of these guys to legislate their way to a solution where they pay a tremendous amount of money, but as Heather said, if by 2027 they're hauling in $25 billion, or say things go wrong and they're only hauling in $21 billion, they pay out $3 billion, and they're like, okay, now we go forward and we're okay. So
isn't that how our entire political system works anyway? I mean,
but,
this is a perfect example of
the
that.
high school and college issue is significant, because if there's no feeder for it, then there's an issue. So,
but if there's an NFL, I believe that there's going to be a feeder for it. And I spoke with two of my girlfriends in Colorado. That
there's going to be a girls' league?
No.
That's a whole other issue. That's fantastic.
Children that are 9 and 12 respectively playing tackle football, intense tackle football. And I spoke with both of them, and both of them, I said, given the information that you now have on CTE, if you did watch the documentary, or just know, would you steer your child away from this contact sport, or even like a lacrosse, some sort of contact sport, into a singular, maybe tennis or anything really, other than this? And both of them said no. If he has a passion for football, I'm going to let him do whatever he wants to do, or her, whatever she wants to do. And so if there's the NFL and the kids see it and they like it and they love it and they want to grow up and be a football player, I don't know that there's not going to be a feeder.
Yeah, it's really difficult to judge one way or another with those parents, because it's so difficult to tell a mother, like, no, you shouldn't do that, or for a mother to tell her son, like, no, you're not allowed to pursue what you're passionate about. But at the same time, sometimes you got to do what's best for your kids, even if they despise it.
I have a daughter, but I wouldn't hesitate to tell a son. I don't care if he says it's his passion. It's just different ways of parenting. I respect that. I also think they probably haven't seen the documentary. And that's why it's important that this story doesn't go away, because it's very easy, and this goes to what our later segments will be about, sort of our passion for sports. And, you know, if we kind of forget about this now, then they'll forget about it. But you got to read, you got to be informed. Otherwise, you just feel like you're a jerk if you prevent your kids from pursuing their dream.
But this is just Colorado. Imagine Texas, where Friday Night Lights, where high school football is
part of the culture.
Yes.
I
don't know that it's going away.
I would never let my kid play football, and they could say, I hate you forever. I'm never going to
just do it.
I'd do it anyway. And they won't hate me forever because they need to eat.
So we're already over time on this, but I have to ask one last question. And Ben, the question goes to you. Do you think the NFL can do anything to mitigate what's happening with brain trauma? Do you think that there are steps that they can take to lessen the amount of concussions that take place?
Well, they're going to inoculate themselves against paying out as many dollars as possible, and they'll do that through legislation. You see they've done it in California, and the other thing is to continue with the technology and try to make the helmets better. I'm sure they'll do all that.
Now they have this initiative, Heads Up initiative for the NFL. It basically teaches kids how to tackle properly with the heads up, but I almost feel like that's just a front, because I mean, really teaching kids. I mean, I understand you're teaching the proper way to tackle, but I feel like the NFL can do a lot more than just like do a little seminar where it's like, oh, okay. I mean, honestly, like as a former player, you're kind of like, you sit there and you're like, and you've been in the trenches and you're like, okay, I see these guys trying to make these kids feel like they're tackling, but they're still getting hit in the head. Like, it's not like you're not gonna prevent a kid from totally. I can understand like certain neck injuries, but even if both your heads are up, you're still colliding and your head is smashing. So
colliding at a huge
kind of
speed.
Like they're trying to teach these type of things, technique, which might be helpful, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get hit in the head. You're going to play football, you're going to get hit in the head.